Chess Praxis is the book that Aron Nimzowitsch wrote after My System. My System is an excursion in the middle game themes. Chess Praxis is a collection of Nimzowitsch games in which he shows the main themes of the middle game. Now, the book is very old. It's more than 70 years old, if I remember well. The point of this book is that Petrosian, the world champion, was sleeping with this book. What does it mean? He was really reading it before falling asleep. He would fall on his face, or probably would put it under his pillow. He said that he disagreed with some stuff and Nimzowitsch wasn't correct, but he memorized each one of the games. So as you can see, if you are really serious about chess and you want to learn about the middle game, then please get this book and read it cover to cover. I will start with game number 1. Game number 1, as other games from this section, it's about centralization. What does centralization mean? The fact that in the beginning, at a certain point, I felt it around when I was 1700, 1800, I felt that the other players were beating me, not because they memorized more moves of the opening, but because they were able to control the center and I wasn't. So game number 1 was played in Berlin in 1928, so nearly 100 years ago. Okay, so sorry, I told you 70, and here we are 90 years. Black is a player called K. Aues, and white is Nimzowitsch. White begin with c4, knight f6, knight c3, c6. So as you can see, just to give you an example, okay, so you understand what we are talking about. c4 is controlling the square, right? So it's fighting for the center. Knight f6 is fighting for two squares, e4 and e5. Knight c3 is contrasting e4 and doubling on d5, okay? So as you can see, there is a reason behind these moves. So you don't have to memorize, because you can try to understand what are you doing in the opening based on the free task of the opening, which is to develop all the pieces, castle and connect the rooks, but also to control the center. So how does black control the center here? He plays c6, again fighting for this, right? e4, fighting again for this even more. You understand, guys? You can see it as a fight for the center, which is the central squares are this main 4. And then there is a bigger center, which is made by f3, c3, c6, and f6. But the fight is generally for these 4 squares, okay? So after f4, what do you think black does? d5. Again, it's all a fight for the center. As you can see, Nimzowitsch really chose a beautiful example. So that's why you need to have a book like the one by Nimzowitsch, also because I think you can find it for like less than $10. So it's not something expensive, and you can learn a lot if you are serious about learning, okay? e5, d4, e takes f6, d takes c3. And after which there is b takes c3. And here he says, now he has a problem on how to recapture. Black recapture with this. Why black did that? Because black thought you need to capture toward the center to make this pawn more valuable. But Nimzowitsch says the recapture by 6 e takes f6 was clearer. And why? Because of the development. It would have followed bishop d6 and castle, and then rook e8. Okay. Here it says this disposition, let me show it to you guys, would mean centralization and therefore the greatest possible safeguard against all surprise. Matters are very different after the move in the test. G takes f6. No doubt, black obtains a proud pawn center, but it is doubtful whether this pawn center gives a good reason for being proud of anything. Let us examine the mobility of the pawn center is small. It practically shows knight f3, c5, e5, d4, and e4, to which follow knight h4, f5, g3. And here he speaks of another concept that for him it's important. It's called the blockade. The blockade here would be made by this and this, okay? And so for him, G takes f6 is not correct. However, guys, honestly, there are other reasons. Now let's go back to the initial position and let's see these moves again. Why? Because remember, guys, you need to memorize. You cannot memorize seeing it only one time. So you must see it a few times, right? And now, of course, I don't tell you the meaning behind the moves because you guys need to remember it, right? Tac, 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 tac. And here there is this, okay? And this. Now, this is the thing I think that Petrosian was in disagreement because he was probably playing 30 years later and some ideas change. For example, while I agree with what Nimzowitsch said, the reality is the following. One, this is bad. This isolated pawn is bad because if we would trade all the pieces, the king generally goes here and is able to create a pass pawn on the other side. Generally is an idea, okay? But this move and this file, since he cannot castle on there, he must castle on here, prove that G takes f6 could be a good move or a good idea. So as you can understand, the point in chess is the spin you give to the position based on your ideas, on your positional ideas. So is it quite possible that with this idea a Petrosian would have won a game? So, okay. Because you see, we see this game and it's won by Nimzowitsch. But would have Nimzowitsch won against an Alekhine? Probably not, right? Knight f3 and c5. Notice this. This move tries to control the center, but also open the square for this knight. But our friend Nimzowitsch says e6 is probably better for the defensive position, but e6 blocks totally this, so it doesn't make sense, right? d4, knight c6, bishop e2, and here there is a strange move that I don't understand, f5, honestly. f5 doesn't make any sense. And here is to be considered it was 9 e5 with the intention of staying there. And here there is a big line that Nimzowitsch gives to justify this concept. But in the game, f5 was played, and f5, yes, is not really good. Why? Because, as you can see, it blocks the bishop, and so not a good idea, right? Okay, so what does white do? White plays d5, knight a5, and now there is a move that decides the game. Can you pause the video and try to find out which is the move that decides the game? The move is knight e5. Okay, bishop d7, bishop h5, bishop g7, and knight takes f7. Queen b6, knight takes h8, king f8 because it was under check, knight f7, and bishop e8. The problem is that that bishop is defended, so I don't really know what he's doing. Knight g5, bishop takes c3, and now guys, you should think a second and tell me what would you play if you were white. Now guys, the move is king f1. Why? Because if you played bishop d2, there is a huge problem. Bishop takes h5, right? Queen takes h5, bishop takes d2, king takes d2, and then boom, queen b2, check. And with the other queen that is out of the game, white is going to probably lose. So let's see what happens, okay? There is a thing that I think Nimzowitsch didn't see or tell us. Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we would have continued to give check. Who knows? So, because practically, guys, the problem is that it's true that he has in the end a queen here that is trying to hit this, right? But the queen here can give checkmate going here. So obviously he needs to do something to avoid that. Okay, so let's see how the game continued, because I'm kind of curious. So after king f1, that is considered the best move, there is bishop takes a1, knight e6, check, king g8, bishop takes e8, rook takes e8, and queen h5 attacking the rook e8. The rook goes back to a8, and the white plays queen takes f5, queen b4, and g3, queen takes e4 check, but now you understand why he played g3, because he plays king g2, and then there is queen here, and the white play an interesting move. It seems that the best should have been rook e1, because it gives him a tempo to play queen g5, but in the game he played bishop d2, knight c4, and rook e1, queen takes d2, knight g5, knight d6, because it's trying to fight for that, and here it says the remainder of a game is sheer murder, which we give reluctantly as we are not of a bloodthirsty nature. Okay, let's see the murder. Queen takes h7, king f8, queen takes e7, king g8, queen takes queen h7, king f8, queen h6, king g8, queen g6, bishop g7, and poor bishop, your hour has come, but there is one consolation, you die at home. Dying at home is important. Queen h7, king f8, knight e6 check, king e8, knight takes g7 check again, king e8, knight e6 check, king e8, and now there is the final move of the game, which is rook e5, and here black resign. So I hope that you love the fourth game of chess Praxis. I believe it's a collection of games that everyone should read, and me fourth. So guys, I hope to do it with you and eventually share more and more games from this great book. Thank you very much for watching.